Once a giant, always a giant. For me, it's only a giant.
What's going on YouTube? Diggy546. Definitely hit that subscribe button if you're new. Like the video if you like the video. And I won't tell if you click that bell. But let's go ahead and get into this. So just quickly to start this off, the content is going to kind of slow down because I've covered a lot of topics as far as the talking head stuff goes. And, just me being on camera talking. I've covered a lot of topics. So I'm slowly running out of topics as we come up to the draft season, which, I mean, we all knew would happen eventually. So unless some huge, trade news or any kind of other news pops out, you're going to see a lot of film sessions. Of course, members are going to get those things first. I'm mostly focusing on the receivers, the offensive line, a couple of the linebackers. Might have a Jamin Davis thing. I'm going to try to get out a couple more corners. So pretty much most of the guys, but I have a lot of film sessions coming up over these next 2 weeks into the draft. So stay tuned for that. That is probably going to be a flood of that. Maybe, sometimes 2-3 videos a day. You guys will see some of that. But moving on, I've just been thinking about this, and it kind of frustrates me because there's this overarching opinion that since the Giants have added Kenny Golladay, who I think is the number one receiver, that was my number one goal. And then they added John Ross first. And for some reason, people think with the addition of Kenny Golladay, who I think is the number one, on a receiving core that was one of the worst in the league last year. I watched them every single game. I watched their all-22 almost every single game. And I saw struggles with separation, struggles getting open. And Darius Slayton did not line up against number one corners every single game. When Shepard was there and Shepard became back part of the offense, Darius Slayton once again was on number two corners. He was on the number two corners and he could not get open. Darius Slayton also sometimes gets open and drops the football. He does it entirely too much. And I'm not having loyalty to a player just because we like the player to not get better at the position. I just don't have that I don't have that in me. If we can get better at this position in a season where Daniel Jones needs to prove that he's the guy, and we need to give him every opportunity to do it, and we're in a receiving core where we have a guy like Kenny Golladay who played 5 games last year. Sterling Shepard, who might play 8 games this year, he might not. He's also a couple of concussions away from having to either retire or be out for an entire season. He's also a guy who gets hamstring and turf toe and every other kind of injury known to man, and that's nothing personal against him. It's just the facts of what's happening. You have a Saquon Barkley, who everybody's saying it doesn't matter if we have a receiver because we have Saquon back. Well, listen, this guy has also been known to miss games. You have John Ross, who has been known to miss way too many games, and when he's not missing games, he's dropping wide open touchdowns because he can get open down the field, but he can't catch down the field sometimes. You have Evan Ingram, who not only has been incredibly injury prone his entire career, but when he finally played the entire season last year, he had way too many drops. He caused about 6 or 7 turnovers. You have Dante Pettis, who I think has struggled with some injuries. So your entire receiving core, Darius Slayton also had some injuries he played through last year. So, kudos to them for playing through it. But my point is this. Your entire receiving core, including running backs, including tight ends, who Kyle Rudolph, who I think is probably the most, historically healthy guy, but he's having foot surgery and he's getting a little bit older. Everybody has some sort of concern. Why not alleviate that concern when you have a blue chip, elite player who is head and shoulders above the other guys who are going to be on the board? And I'll preface this. If we take Rashawn Slater, I will be happy. If we take Penei Sewell, I will be extremely happy, and I will take Penei Sewell over most of these guys in this draft. That's just the pick that I'm prepared to make over most of these receivers. No problem with that. But once you get past those two guys, and you're drawing for straws, and you're reaching for Elijah Vera Tucker, and you're reaching for I don't think we need a Michael Parsons. I really don't think we need a Michael Parsons. I made a video talking about how he can fit in our defense and how he can be a weapon. I think that's possible, but I don't think that we need that defensive playmaker from a linebacker position when we already have one, and especially a guy who's not the best in coverage, when we really need to score some points. We need to score some points. And who scores touchdowns? Receivers, running backs, quarterbacks. Sometimes defense, sometimes, special teams, but usually your touchdowns are coming from your receivers, your running backs, and your quarterbacks or your tight ends, but they get lumped in with receivers for me. And we have a ton of interior offensive linemen. Wyatt Davis, Alex Leatherwood, if he falls to 42, I'm taking him. I would even trade up for him. I did that in my mock draft I put out yesterday on stream. I traded up for Alex Leatherwood and I moved him to guard. There's a ton of guard. Quinn Miners, he's a third-round option. Trey Smith, he's a third-round option, but only because of some injury stuff he's dealt with. Landon Dickerson is a beast of an offensive lineman. There is a ton of other offensive linemen that we could trade back into the first for. My thing is, why are we so focused on just filling a guard spot where we could fill that spot in the second round and get 85 to 90% of the production that we would get from an Elijah Vera Tucker with a Ben Cleveland, in my opinion, or a Wyatt Davis, in my opinion? We could really legitimately get one of those guys and get a guy who's almost as good as AVT or could possibly be better, and get the blue chip wide receiver. We could also get a guy who we know will be on this team for the next 5 to 6 or 7 years, and he's going to be a superstar for the team. He's going to make this play. He's going to make everybody on this entire offense better. Jalen Waddle. I hate to have to go back over this, but people don't understand when you have a guy on your team that's that fast and you line him up and you line him up on the field, the defense cannot play cover zero. They cannot, because he will run past the entire defense, and he's not like a John Ross who's going to just drop the football. You cannot play him. You just can't do it. And on top of that, he's not just a speed receiver. For my guys who just want to lump him in with John Ross and say we already have a John Ross kind of receiver and we don't need Jalen Waddle, they're not the same receiver. You have one guy who's polished, who's a polished receiver, who is, all I can say about him is that he's polished. He can win in the short area. He can win in the intermediate area, and he can definitely win going deep. He's there in the return game. He's there pretty much everywhere you need him. Devontae Smith, intermediate, short, wherever you need him, he can win. Jamar Chase, intermediate, short, red zone, yak. All three of these guys are getting yards after the catch. They can win all over the field. Why would you not want to improve your team with one of those players? And you can get a guard in the second round. Why would you not want to add a receiver? Because you say we already have Darius Slayton. Well, what if you have someone that's better than Darius Slayton? Do you not want to improve your team? It doesn't make any sense to me. Darius Slayton is not Calvin Johnson. He's not Odell Beckham. He's not a top 20 receiver in the league. He's not a top 32 receiver in this league. He's simply not. He's probably not top 40 or 50. When you look at everybody that's in this league, he's not up there with these top guys. So why is he so irreplaceable for you all? I want my offense and my defense, which I feel is really in a good point. I want my offense to be explosive as possible. I want them to be as productive as possible. And it doesn't matter how long you block. If none of your receivers can get open, you're not going to score points. You're going to be stuck at that 17 to 24, points a game kind of thing. And we'll be lucky if we can get to 24, 25. But you're going to be stuck under 20 points a game again because you took a guard in the first round that you're putting all of this pressure on, when every single guard that's ever been drafted is going to have a learning curve. There's no Quentin Nelson here that you're just going to plug and play and he's going to be an all-pro. I don't see that in this draft. Maybe Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater, but I do not think they're going to be there. So I don't think that Elijah Vera Tucker is some plug-and-play all-pro guard that's going to just change the entire offensive line. And if the offensive line is so bad, guess what, guys? If it's that bad, then it doesn't matter who you draft this year. It doesn't matter if you get a Penei Sewell and for some reason you were able to get a guy in the second round at guard, and you got a tackle and a guard. If they were that bad, guess what? That's not going to change things next year. It's really not. because those guys are going to have to develop as rookies. And the other guys you have on your line are so bad at pass protection. It wasn't because everybody was sending blitzes at us. No, no, no. It's because they were so bad. Well, guess what? You know what gave up most of the pressure last year? Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas gave up most of the pressures last year. So are you going to bench Andrew Thomas? No. And guess what? We took Andrew Thomas at number 4 overall. So you're saying that you're going to bring in some lineman this year that's going to be the savior of all 4 other positions. And now moving on to my last point. When you look at what's going to be there at 42, I'm thinking only Rondale Moore is going to be the best receiver there. I don't think much of Elijah Moore at all. I just don't. So Rondale Moore is another guy who's injury prone, who has real problems with drops. So I think he's the best guy there, but I don't necessarily want him on my team. Diami Brown, to me, he's Darius Slayton. He's exactly what Darius Slayton is. I can't tell the difference. They look like the same player to me. And I don't think he's worth that second overall pick. And he's going to have to develop into what Darius Slayton is right now. Nico Collins, he's a big body receiver. Fine. I would love to have a Nico Collins on my team, but I don't think he's going to make that kind of impact year one. If you take Jamar Chase, if he's there, he probably won't. If you take a Devontae Smith, if you take a Jalen Waddle, they're ready to go right out of the box. Week 1, they are a serious threat against the defense that they're playing against. It's just no bones about it. There's no doubt about it. There's no waiting until the end of the year for you to wait for, a Diami Brown or Nico Collins or a Tutu Atwell. I mean, guys who are being vastly overrated. There's no waiting until week 17 for them to finally blossom and be the guy that you picked them to be. We need production week 1. We need it week 1 because we have a quarterback who's trying to, who's playing for his job. We have a GM that's coaching that's picking for his job. And we have a coach who, frankly, at this point, I think is coaching for his job. If you don't have any improvement, the Giants want to see improvement quickly. We cannot pick these long-term, late round wide receiver projects. There's not the same talent there as you're getting, with pretty much, in my opinion, sure things. These guys are so polished out of the SEC. Which Alabama receivers, because people are so convinced that someone's going to be a bust, which Alabama receivers over the last couple of years have busted? Henry Ruggs has had injury issues, and Henry Ruggs was never really the guy at Alabama that was supposed to be just, beyond, the next crazy generational prospect. He was never that guy. He got drafted high because of his speed and mostly because of his speed. Jerry Jeudy did not bust. He didn't have a quarterback. Amari Cooper obviously didn't bust. Odell Beckham obviously didn't bust. Jarvis Landry obviously not. Justin Jefferson last year, pretty much rookie of the year. These SEC guys who are polished, who are winning like this, getting 20-plus touchdowns in college football, are not busts. You take what you know is the best player on the board, and you continue from there. So I'm at 13 minutes right now, and this is something that I could debate and I could go on and on about for another hour. But I'm telling you right now, if the Giants do not address this receiver position with a premium pick, with a guy who is a proven receiver, who is going to come in there and be a threat week 1, who's not going to, you can get that guard round 2, you can get him round 3. But to get that guy who's going to be a threat week 1, if they don't do that in November, Giants fans will be sitting there talking about how we can't score any points. And the problem and the blame will go back to the offensive line that we just spent a first-round pick on because we have to wait for them to develop. So anyways, I'm going on and on. You guys let me know what you think it is. We got to take a receiver. We have to get a guy in here who can make something happen. We cannot continue to risk these injuries and play the same story over and over again. I'm out, man. So if you made it this deep into the video, I'm calling you a D6 squad member. If you're a D6 squad member, you got to hit that subscribe button. You got to turn on that notification bell. And listen, I make all kinds of content for NFL teams. So if you're not a Giants fan, don't worry. I'll cover your team. If I'm not covering your team, let me know. And have a good one.